All right, I will call this meeting to order, the Pewaukee School District Board of Education meeting for Monday, November 24th. I'll start with roll call. Mary? Here. Travis?
Here.
Matt?
Here.
Ashley?
Here.
Larry?
Here.
Thank you. Tammy, was the meeting properly noticed?
Yes, the meeting was properly noticed.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
Move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Oppose.
We'll stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'm excited. Tonight's Spotlight of Learning is Pewaukee Lake Elementary. Brian, we'll let you get it started.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to be very brief. I'll turn it over to the experts for this. So, 4K team came to me beginning of the school year. They said, we'd love to do an event with grandparents. We'd like to call it Grandpals Day. So, this is our very first Grandpals Day, and I'll turn it over to members of our 4K team that are here to talk about the event, kind of the inspiration behind it, and the wonderful feedback that we got from families afterwards. So joined here by Steph LeBlanc, Cheryl Panka, and Karen Badursky.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Panka, and I'm a 4K teacher at PLE. I'm a mom of 4 grown kids, and I'm a Gigi, one of my favorite things in the world. And if you look at your slide there, that's me and my grandson, Montgomery. 2 years ago, I visited his school to see what he was doing in the classroom, to see how he was relating to his peers, just to see his learning. And so I spent an afternoon with him. I got to eat in the lunchroom and enjoyed my time with him. It was amazing. Then last year, he asked if I could come to his school again. It meant a lot to him, and it meant a lot to me. So, of course, I went back and I visited Monty in his school. We had a great time. So this past summer, I was thinking, that created a memory for him. It created a memory for me. And we talked a lot about it. And I thought, we need to do that in our school. We need to bring our grandparents in and show them all the wonderful things we're doing in our 4K program. Our program is amazing, and our grandparents need to see it. And they need to see what kind of learning we're doing, because it's so different from how they learned so long ago. And so I thought about this Grandpals Day, and the plan was I was just going to do it in my classroom and see how it went, and then let my team decide if they wanted to do it next year. But I brought the idea to them, and they were so excited that our whole team had to have the program come to our school. So we were excited. The real purpose was to create this environment of joy for our grandparents and our grandchildren. So we're going to talk a little bit about it and the feelings that it brought for us.
So we put together lots of activities for our grandpals when they came in. So we met in our classrooms. The looks on the kids' faces as their grandpals came in was precious. We did a song for them, and then we went and did some activities. So we had a photo booth where they could take a picture with their grandpal. We made bookmarks with them. We played a Roll a Grandpal game, which they thought was amazing. But then our whole day really centered around bringing grandpals into our classrooms and letting them play. And to see grandpals getting down there in the dig pit was, I don't know, I will never forget that. So just lots of activities for them. They got to see a little bit of the school. The kids loved taking their grandpals through the activities and be the teacher for them. So we have some pictures pictures say 1,000 words. Just looking at the faces of these grandpals and their kids, you can see the dig pit. We asked for feedback, so there's little quotes on the bottom. I found myself, I'm not a grandma. I don't know, maybe down the road, I don't know. But I found myself getting kind of choked up just in talking to them. I think it brought back memories of how important my grandmother was to me. She taught me empathy. She gave me love of animals. She taught me kindness and patience. And just watching these little ones interact with them was something we said, we have to do this now every year. Grandparents were impressed with how the kids took them through their activities, and we were impressed too as they shared their learning.
I've been in this district for 34 years. This is my 34th year in the district, and I think that this was one of my favorite events that we did by far. Watching the grandparents' face light up when they saw their grandchild, the grandchild's face light up when they saw their grandma or grandpa was priceless. And watching them play, as you can see in some of the pictures here, we were in the ocean room that day. We have grandmas fishing in the fishing pool for letters. We have our friends playing with the clownfish. It was just amazing. I had a hard time holding back my tears. It was just that good.
So I'm not a grandparent either, but I do have 3 boys who go to school here. And as I was watching this happen, watching the kids leap into their grandparents' arms when they saw them, and so excited to kind of be the teacher and say, Grandma, Grandpa, come on here. And they would like show them, and they were using the vocabulary words we've already taught them in just these first, I mean, we were only in there for 4 weeks. It was amazing. And so my boys, I know we live in Pewaukee. My parents come to as many things as they're invited to. Field trips, I kind of wrote things down, sorry. Choir concerts, these are memories they talk about still with my kids today. And so I know they would have loved this as well. And for our children who didn't have a grandpa, we reached out to admin. So like Dr. Cady, he was one that came into my classroom, and I would love to have him share, but I know even my students who had the administrators were also just as excited to have someone there that was a supporter of them. So I don't know if Dr. Cady can come in.
I was thrilled and honored to get to sub in for a couple of our students who just didn't have a grandparent that was able to be there with them that day and engage in those activities, and just get to see what a great event it was. And so you guys just absolutely hit it out of the park. But it was so thank you for giving me that opportunity. I loved it.
Well, we thank you, and all the administrators that were able to step in. So the next one is from Mrs. Kranick's room. More quotes, more happy grandparents and children, and then this was our closing.
So when we asked for feedback, there was a quote that I got, and the grandparent was like, sorry you said something short, but, I kind of went on, but I really thought for you to listen to it. It said, Grandparents and Grandpals play incredibly important roles in a child's life. They are often a source of wisdom, stability, and unconditional love. Events like Grandpals Day honor that role and recognize the unique bond between generations. By inviting them into the school, you send a powerful message that their presence matters and that they are valued partners in our child's growth and education. One of the most wonderful aspects of the day was that grandparents were able to see the environment their grandchildren are in each day. They got to experience the classrooms, meet teachers, see the learning materials, and get a glimpse of the routines and activities that shape their grandchild's day. This helps grandparents better understand what school looks like today, how much care and intention goes into the 4K program, and how their grandchildren are learning and thriving in your care. Calvin's grandma. So when we think about Pewaukee as a community, it's so important that our day-to-day things that happen here extend out into the community. And I couldn't think of a better way to extend that into the community for these grand pals and other generations to see what learning looks like today. Thank you. Any questions?
I would like to say, as my peeps know me as either Oma or Nana, I have been to Grandparents' Day at their schools. This is such a precious activity. You know, grandparents play such a different role in kiddos' lives these days than they used to. I mean, we're often really part of child rearing. We're just, parents are working and we're there involved with these kids. And to be able to come to the school and see what these kids are learning and the pride when they get to teach their grandpals. So I just want to volunteer that if you're in need of an Oma or a Nana next year, sign me up. I will be here in a heartbeat. I'm here.
Is that noted in the board notes? We can refer back to that.
Yes, yes.
Sign up for volunteers. I just want a great idea in terms of doing it, and obviously including grandparents and grandpals in that part of it, but just part of me wants to know, did you keep track of like how many actual grandpals or grandparents came in and how many substitutes you had to have for kids or not?
We had, I think, right around 90 RSVP to attend.
90? Okay.
90, yeah.
And how many kids in the classes, 4K classes?
We only had we only needed 5 administrators in the morning for 5 kids in the morning and then 5 in the afternoon.
Okay. So great participation then as well, which is, again, good for the community. And sometimes I think you'd maybe be surprised too, like either if they were grandparents or grandpals that came from out of town. I mean, they can come from a long ways because this is a big event for them as well, so.
And we kind of planned it on a Friday so they can make it like a weekend trip.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
It's right up there with the Veterans Day celebration, I tell you.
Maybe just one other comment. So I have a granddaughter who's at Divine Savior Holy Angels, and they did a Grandparents' Day there too. And again, people drove in from all over the state for that one too, so.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay, next, Tammy, do we have any citizen comments? No comments from citizens. Okay, thank you. Next, salutes and recognitions. Boy, I couldn't wait. So, last week, I got to go on a learning walk, and that's when Mike informed me that our middle school, Asa Clerk, right here, for math, they were named number 5 in the state. Is that correct, Mike?
I think it's actually, I went back and looked, I think it is 6th. So, 6th
Well,
on their math scores.
okay, 6th. But I just want to salute the principals, the teachers, all the staff. I mean, the teachers that I rubbed shoulders with that day, I gave them hugs and I said, thank you for all the hard work that you do and the difference that you make in our kiddos' lives. It makes me feel so proud. I just want to cry. So I just wanted to salute you guys at ASA for all you do to bring that source of pride to the district. Thank you. Any other board member?
I'm gonna maybe put Maura on the spot for this one, but I did give her a little heads up before the meeting started. Maura, can you tell us a little bit about what you did at the Schulte's Greenhouse and what kids from the school were involved in working and putting together the gnomes that are out there that are in the village? So
Yeah, so the Serving Others class, every year they go down to Schulte's Greenhouse. I don't know if it's every year, but this year we partnered with my Aunt Jill. We partnered with her 18 to 21 program and Miss Vandre's Life Skills program. That day was only Grant because most of her class was sick. But Grant partnered up with my group. He did lovely passing us branches. So this year, I know we ran the gnome situation a little bit differently. Our class is asking more for like donations from businesses rather than just saying if you want a gnome, we can give you a gnome. Because it cost a lot from Schulte's just to make a gnome. So we've already had a few companies donate. It was just really fun. So we had a lady from the Waukesha Freeman come and they interviewed us. We got a few quotes in there. The newspaper today, we were on the front. I got a copy of it from Miss 70, so that was pretty fun.
So shout out to her, but also to the Schulte's Greenhouse and the class of students that were down there. So you don't have to do thank you notes, proper recognitions to all of them, but it was just a great connection between the community and high school students. So
I wanted to give a salute to the cheer team. So our 7th and 8th grade girls had their very first cheer competition this last weekend, and they took first place in their division. And then I know the high school team was there as well, and they took second in cheer dance. So I wanted to shout out to the coaches, Sarah Lutz, Emily Ext, Adrian Moran, and Jen Hindi, or Hind, I think is how you say it.
Awesome. Anyone else from the board? Mike, anything for you?
I'm just going to salute Tammy and Melanie for getting me ready to go here for this meeting on short notice when I had my flight canceled today. So thank you to Tammy and Melanie for fixing my problems.
Awesome. All right, consent agenda. It contains the minutes from previous meetings, correspondence, which was included in your packet, and there was a wonderful donation from the Generac Foundation. They donated $1,500 to our high school robotics team. Thank you, Generac, for your generous gift. We so much appreciate that. Can I get a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented?
move to, actually, I think it should be approve, right? Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Moving along, old business. We need to consider and possible approval of the new CTE course revisions for the next school year, 26-27. You've had those in front of you for a few weeks. I don't know if anyone has any remaining questions. Mike, anything you want to add?
I had checked with Anthony ahead of time, and he has not received any questions since these were presented.
Then with that, I'll look for a motion.
Move to approve the new course proposal revisions for the CTE courses for the 2026-2027 school year as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Moving on to new business. Next, we want to hear our summer school report. Beth, Paul, Lisa, and Sarah.
Hello. So we're just here presenting about Summer School 2025 and all the things that went on. Our staff this summer, we were able to maintain most of our staff and returning in regards to our administrative staff. And so our addition to this, other than the people you see here with me tonight, is Nicole Hust, who is our summer school secretary, and then Tyler Reed, who took on a teacher length contract, but an administrative role to support just behavior and parent communication throughout summer school. So some highlights for this school year, for our summer school year, is we added in the boater and ATV safety courses that were run legitimately with the DNR. We had 2 staff members go through coursework to gain their certifications. We also added a variety of new art classes, leaning on the expertise of Jane Costello, who was working at PLE in the art department, and she brought some really phenomenal art classes to our older students. So that was one of our areas we wanted to improve, is the offering to our 6th through 8th grade students. We had a summer school food drive again. Our school resource officers were both on campus and supporting throughout summer school for a variety of reasons, both in all capacities, traffic and just educationally. We had a summer band program this summer, which helped kind of get the kickoff for kids as they entered into 6th grade band. We moved our 4K program. It had shifted into a shorter program with only 2 days a week, and we switched it back to 5 days, which was well received. And then we created a new registration process this year, which went a lot more smoothly than it has in the past. And then we made some shifts to credit recovery where it was in a hybrid format, giving both in-person and online options for students. So Lisa was a huge portion of our boater and ATV safety, so I'll let her talk about this.
She's just saying that because I had to be one of the staff to get certified, and it was so hard. I was at home taking these tests, and if you didn't pass, you had to redo. I was a mess. Anyways, I'm certified in boater safety, and I have also don't need it because I'm old enough that I didn't have to. I missed the deadline, but the other staff member was Mr. Dockstetter, and he is an out-of-district team member, and he said that he would do this again next year, so we're happy to have him on board. It was a lot of extra work. It wasn't just coming in and teaching summer school, so he had to do a lot of training as well as myself. He also, I just talked to him, and he said he is now training adults. So he trained the Pewaukee Police Department in boater safety and ATV snowmobile safety. So we ended up with 52 licensed boaters and 31 licensed ATV and snowmobile drivers. So it's really a neat course. The kids put on drunk goggles to see what it was like if they were drinking too much. They shot, what was it? A flare, fake ones, but flares. They learned how to put on safety vests and devices that they needed for safety. They had a whole slew of things that the DNR had brought in. They also worked with the Waukesha Sheriff's Department, and they brought their boat onto campus. You can see that, and learned from them. And they had another police officer come in and talk about different safety aspects. So I was glad to hear and see how many kids, they had to stay all 10 days in order to get their license, and it worked out really well. So we hope to do it again this summer.
Quick question, the licensed boaters, is there a certain age that they have to be?
Yeah,
And,
you're gonna quote me and see if I passed that test or not. Yes, they have to, like some of the kids, I think they have to be 12 for boaters.
Okay.
For ATVs, they have to be 14 and then 16 for UTVs. So, they can get their license ahead of time and then hang on to it until they are able to do it on their own. And boaters, they can't do it. They could do it at 12, but they have to have an adult with them. So, thank you.
Yeah, so for those courses, we started out by offering it to our students entering 7th and 8th grade because it was closer within the age range, but then just to increase enrollment and make sure we had enough kids. Once we had communicated that you had to be in attendance for all 10 days. There's some family summers, activities, tournaments, teams that had to back out, so we opened it up to 6th grade as well, which is something, like Lisa said, they can hang on to that certification or they just need an adult present with them. So we'll continue next year and open up to our 6th graders, entering 6th graders as well. We also added a new class, which is our transitions class. This was support our students with special needs, and our special ed coordinator for summer school, Sarah Kennedy, will talk a little more about that.
Hi, nice to meet all of you. We had a new course offering this past summer that we titled Transitions, and this was geared towards our students that are primarily on alternate curriculum that need assistance with life skills, essential skills, and transitioning from their old team of teachers to their new team, and also a new building, which can be quite challenging for a lot of students. So this ran the entire time, both sessions A and B of summer school, and it was a huge success. The parents were very happy with the activities that we provided. We did cooking and different communication skills and practice setting the table and being able to eat with utensils, and then practice where our new classroom was going to be for the next school year, which has proved to be successful at the beginning in the fall. So we're hoping to have it back, probably some of the same kids and hopefully some new kids too. Thank you.
We also partnered up quite a bit with the community, and we typically do for summer school, but this year we added a few additional people that were willing to support summer school and the work that we're doing. Beachside Boat and Bait, they are our lifeline for everything fishing class. They do a wonderful job. They're very open to allowing us to just kind of come in, get what we need, and then worry about it on the back end. Super supportive. Our t-shirts, as you can see, we were provided with shirts this year for all staff members. One of the things we want to do is increase visibility of who are those safe adults on campus during summer school. We do have non-resident students who aren't familiar with all of us, so all staff members were outfitted with a t-shirt, thanks to Pewaukee Coffee Company and City Screen Print. Pewaukee Coffee Company is a district family-owned organization, and then City Screen Print works closely with them, so they were both willing to put in for the cost of the shirts. Pewaukee Food Pantry, we partner with them to run a food drive every year, and of course they appreciate all the support. Hiawatha Hobbies is a big piece of our rocketry and some of the other classes we run, and then we partnered up obviously with the DNR and then Pewaukee Park and Rec. These are just some pictures, action shots from the summer. Current planning, so of course, as you can imagine, as soon as summer school closes, we start thinking about the next summer. We are making another adjustment to our Jumpstart to 4K program. In the past years, we've offered it in 2-week portions. This year, we saw a little bit of a dip in enrollment, coming back from offering only the 2 days, then moving to the 5 days. And we do believe that if we can offer it for longer than just 2 weeks, childcare is really difficult in the summer when you're trying to make plans, and so we want to look to extend it, whereas families have an option. You can choose to do just the 2 weeks, or you can choose to do all 4. We're hoping just to give our youngest learners more time on campus and just to get to know some of our school. At PLE, those classes are ran at PLE specifically for that, not in the 4K rooms, those are off limits during summer school, but just being in the building. They did a really phenomenal job in Jumpstart of getting the kids understanding about their spaces and like where the bathrooms are, where do you walk in the morning, just teaching them some of those routines of, to create some independence. We saw kids coming into PLE this summer in this school year and already knowing right where to go, and I think that is kudos to our staff members who are PLE staff who ran our 4K program. We're also reviewing our intervention programming just to make sure that what we're doing is what meets the needs of most kids. Updating some speed and strength and youth conditioning programming, continuing to talk about high school credit recovery classes, and Paul will talk about that in a little bit, and then we're revisiting the summer band program to see if we can expand it further into the summer school dates versus outside of it in August. Summer school enrollment increased again this year by 73 kids, but we also saw an increase in residential students and out of district. Our non-resident students who participate do pay a fee to attend school. Because of that and that increase from going with just 18 days of attendance to 20, that's a big portion of why our total resident minutes increased, as well as our FTE. The revenue generated from course fees, we don't charge for summer school, it is free, but those costs that are associated with that are some of the consumable costs, as well as the DNR courses and fee-based courses where that money doesn't stay within the district, it goes right back out. And then you can see that we were able to increase our revenue limit from summer school. Our expenses increased by a bit, but we also added 2 additional days, and then we added some credit recovery programming, training for staff members to do specialty courses, and then we also increased our in-staff, in-district teachers for running summer school classes versus paying less money for out-of-district. So like I said, the staffing updates, I think Larry, you were the one that asked last year that said to me, how can we get more Pewaukee teachers teaching our Pewaukee kids? And we were able to accomplish that this year. We kind of flipped it, and we had 49 in-district employees as teachers educating our kids in the summer, with only needing 37 to fill in the other spaces. Our paraprofessionals, it was kind of a split mix of 8 and 8. And then our high school helpers, again, we had 33. We did not need as many high school helpers this year. And then we maintained our 2 college students who are pursuing education and were an incredible resource for us this summer. So I'll let Paul talk about credit recovery.
Good evening, everybody. Paul Bursai, Associate Principal at the middle school. You'll notice that these slides look a little different. They're not as picture heavy. They're a little more text forward. but that doesn't paint the picture of credit recovery. So credit recovery is a little different this past summer. We're excited to offer it in a hybrid format where students weren't there in the seats all 5 days. They had 1 day a week minimum where they came in and received in-person instruction, and other than that, they were at home working through an online course framework called Edgenuity. And so Edgenuity offered them the opportunity to work from home. There was a check-in day-to-day with the teacher. It was either, most of it was via the Google Meet or something like that. And so it did offer a little more flexibility for students and teachers. We were able to, I think that was a big selling point to make sure we had staffing within our district, which proved to be really important as far as student success. So the other piece here that we've evolved our approach to where students are just making up credits by showing proficiency in the reportable standards that they've not yet shown proficiency in. So, for example, if in Math 1 there are 4 reportable standards and they've already shown proficiency in 2 of those standards, through summer school they have to show proficiency in the other 2 standards that they've not yet shown. So they don't have to go back through all of the course. They have to go back and make up what they've not yet shown proficiency, which aligns to standards-based grading philosophy as well. So on the bottom it lists our staff. So you'll see 3 PSD employees. We're excited. Steve Getch has been a math teacher here for 4 years or so. Amanda Wacker works in the PHS English department, and we're excited that Garrett Miles has joined us at Asa Clark Middle School as a paraprofessional this year. He's doing a phenomenal job there. So we're excited to have that group of staff sticking around through the summer. And again, I'm quite confident, especially in math, that they made a major difference in the credits that were recovered. So I want to focus this slide. Oh, there's a picture that's a little Bart's too. That's exciting. On the far right column, 2025. So the number of students, you'll notice that we more than doubled our number of students enrolled from 24 to 25. It got back up to the high a few years ago, and that really has to do with math. So in the last couple of years, we were only able to offer Math 3 for credit recovery. Through the combination of having Edgenuity as well as having Mr. Getch there, we were able to do Math 1, 2, and 3, or offer those 3 courses. So that made a huge difference. And then if you look on the bottom, 87% of students who began completed their credits, and the 13% who didn't really it was an attendance thing, and they weren't there. There is an attendance standard that they just didn't meet, unfortunately. And so with that, you'll see that 22 semester credits in math. That's a huge deal when we think about graduation rate and students who are not keeping up with their cohort. That's a big deal. So I want to personally give Steve Getch a ton of credit for his he learned Edgenuity and really put a ton of time and effort into phenomenal communication with families and students, and pushed a lot of kids through earning those math credits. So that's a huge highlight for this past summer's credit recovery.
So looking ahead, just a couple of things that we've mentioned. We're going to be doing 2 10-day sessions again in 4 consecutive weeks. We won't have the week off during 4th of July. A big part of that is the building project at Horizon, making sure we're out of the space for Horizon to continue with their upgrades. And then we'll be reviewing our intervention courses that are offered to students entering 1st through 8th grade. And then today a family message went out through Skyward Messenger to the district, just letting families know that these are our dates for the upcoming summer school session. Speed and Strength is going to align with these pretty closely, but we're meeting in December to finalize those dates. So they will likely land in the same piece. If anything, it'll be maybe we add an additional week for those athletes. So yeah, any questions?
Actually, a couple of questions for you. The 133 non-resident students, but also then the teachers out of district, what draws them in? I mean, what is the attraction that pulls in students, but also staff?
Some of our out of district resident or out of district students who enrolled were children of out of district employees who joined us this summer. So that is some of the increase. I think the piece within the hiring for staff, it was just a lot of it, I honestly think, was timing of when we put out the application. We used to put the application out in December, and now we wait a little bit, and I think staff feel a little bit less of the winter holiday grind. The last thing they want to think about is summer school employment. So waiting a little bit did seem to increase it. We've also just given a lot of autonomy to teachers being able to create what they want to do, creating classes that are interested in, not having to stick into their own camp. Out of district students, we get a lot of people who are just pleased with the programming and the things that are offered, the variety of things, and our DNR courses were a bit of an attraction this summer.
The other question, can you talk just a little bit about the high school helpers? What role do they play, and what are they getting out of it, I guess?
Do one of you guys want it, or?
We've had high school helpers for many, many years, and we've just increased the amount over the years of the kids coming in because more of them have applied for the position. So they'll be offered a position for summer school, and they do a variety of things. We look at classes that have a lot of enrollment, high enrollment, and we'll put high school helpers in to help the teachers with that. Some of them will help, they'll pair with a paraprofessional and help with students that have special needs. And a lot of those kids that help with summer school are going into the education.
Yes, okay, that's what hopefully more of them are going into it.
So too.
Yeah, good.
I can add to that too. I do the process of hiring the high school helpers, and we had, I think, over 80 high school students apply to help, and so to cut it down to 32 is tough, and I love that they want to be involved. And then there's students that specifically from the special ed perspective want to work in special ed, which is wonderful. So we pair them with our students that are attending that have a disability, and so it's a really great beginning step for them to see what the experience is like.
Of course, thank you for the credit recovery ones too, Paul. That's essential, so thanks. That's all.
I want to say kudos on the new courses that you offered this summer. I think they're all fantastic. That new transitions course, was that for a specific grade, age group?
It was specific to Horizons. It was, since we were trying it out for the first year, and I work at Horizon, we were trying it with that third, fourth, fifth population.
Sure.
Also having the fifth graders that are going to be transitioning to ASA in the fall. So we talked as a team, and we felt that at the PLE level, they're working on transitions in their general ed classrooms already. So in third, fourth, and fifth, it seems to be kind of where they're at that age, they are kind of offshooting into sports and different crafts, and not getting that transition help that they don't desperately need. So it was a specific Horizon-specific age group and students that are have an intellectual disability where they are on essential elements and need assistance with transitioning and life skills primarily. So I think we had 6 students that we kind of I spoke to the parents ahead of time to make sure that that's something that they were interested in, and we had an overwhelmingly positive response. So it was great. Something to add to it.
I can't imagine the comfort level of those students coming in their first day, already having comfort knowing where to go, which school, what classroom. That's great.
Yeah, we had a student that was came to ASA, and we spent, I would say, a half hour every day for 4 weeks coming to ASA and taking pictures, and I made a social story, and just having that eased parents and eased, I think, the transition for that student as a 6th grader.
You know, as a board, we've often talked about, that difficulty of transition from school to school. It would be neat if you also did this for like the 8th grade who are going to be transitioning to the high school. I think there's a lot of angst there, so it might be really beneficial there as well.
Year doing it, and it was something I'm hoping that we can expand for sure to all buildings.
It's great.
Couple of questions on are you all set, Bren?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. On the credit recovery, how long have we been doing that?
Credit recovery?
Correct.
As long as I can remember being in the district. I've been overseeing it for 4 years.
And that is across all academics?
It's core subjects except for science. Science, there's a lab nature of it that we can't really replicate that in the summer. So it's social studies, ELA, and math.
can a student take the entire course in the summer? Do we
They can
offer
make up
that?
credit from the first semester and second semester in the summer.
So that would be a no?
The whole course, so if math once a semester is a 2-semester course, so they can make up the first semester and the second semester, so yes, they can make up the.
No, you're putting in the word makeup. I'm not looking at makeup. If you're in Algebra 1 and you're flying through it and you want to do Algebra 2 in the summer, can you do that here?
My apologies. So
That's
that's
okay.
called credit attainment, and that's a separate bucket from credit recovery. So they cannot go through the Edgenuity program in that way.
Yeah, our credit attainment classes are offered in person. And so this past school year, we offered personal finance, personal fitness, and health for credit attainment.
Can they take Algebra 2 in the summer at Pewaukee?
No.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you.
Keep up the good work out there. So.
Okay, now we get to the meaty stuff. The continuous improvement reports, and we're gonna start with Brian Siegel.
Mike, did you want to kick off CIR
Yeah,
stuff
I
before I
just
jump
jump
into
in
building
here.
stuff?
Yes. So, thanks to all of you for being here tonight. And I can't see you on my video, but I think Emily, maybe you're subbing in for Brian Sniff tonight with his unfortunate injury that he has. The continuous improvement reports are an annual piece that the board gets a report of, again, just to kind of remember to frame it. You're going to get results from last year. So how did they do on their goals last year? And some other highlights, and then a look into what are their priorities and their areas of focus this year. It's just an important element of our continuous improvement practices and data reporting to the board. So principals are here to share that information and to answer questions that you have. And with that, I'll turn it over to Brian to get us started.
All right. Last year, our goal was focused on literacy again. With everything happening through Act 20, we wanted to make sure that we were putting our efforts into that and also analyzing data, because last year we were also piloting 2 different literacy programs. So to summarize that lengthy goal, we're looking at the PAST, which is phonological awareness screening test in 4K, and then we were looking at STAR and running records for other students. We did not use Ames Web Plus because we didn't start that until winter when it was required, so we didn't have 3 data points to show them being on track by the end of the year. Just in case you're wondering, we will be using Ames Web this year though. So as you can see in 4K, they knocked out of the park with the PAST and the 2 different measures that we had. Rhyme recognition is a skill that is supposed to be secure in 5K, so you can see that we are happy to see a number of our kids secure in that, nearly 91%. In 5K, and then what you'll see in the other grade levels, they met their goals for F&P, but not for STAR. Big reason for this is that when they took STAR at the end of the year, they had already taken F&P testing, they were taking Ames Web, and by the time we got to STAR, especially with our youngest kids, there was a bit of fatigue there. So they were on track in winter, but didn't quite hit their marks that we expected them to in spring. And that's consistent, as you can see, across the grade levels of reading levels, increase, hit their marks, but just with some test fatigue, didn't quite get there in STAR. We also look specifically at our students in special education, those that are doing alternate programming, those students who are doing Sunday, which is a very phonological based program. 6 out of those 7 students hit the mark. For those doing EdMark, which is really vocabulary based, and that is much more for our younger students, only 3 kids were on that. All 3 kids made a huge amount of progress, but they just didn't quite hit their mark. So the 0% doesn't accurately represent the growth that they made throughout the year. Some things that we learned in both literacy and numeracy is that even though they hit F&P targets and not quite STAR overall, when you look at individual kids, is that kids are making a huge amount of growth. As you can see there across the board, 60% of kids hit their STAR growth, even though they're also taking Ames Web and PASS. And then above 90% for kids 5K through second grade meeting at least one of their literacy goals. And then numeracy, you can see the number of kids meeting in CGA, the comprehensive growth assessment for math. That's through the Bridges program. To be proficient, they have to be proficient across all the strands. So in a group like 5K, they have to be proficient across 7 different strands to be considered proficient. So we're really happy with that 84% number there. Growth, we're always looking to improve. We know that as a part of Act 20 and the literacy plans that we have for those students who are below the 25th percentile, we need to increase our ability to give Tier 1 strategies to our classroom teachers so they can run those reading plans and give more personalized instruction to those students so they can make a growth. Even though we didn't measure Ames Web, that's something as part of Act 20 that really came to the forefront of what new tools can we give, what new strategies can we give to teachers to help improve reading strategies. Also use of formative tools to drive data and instructional planning. That really drives into our PLC work this year, which I'll touch on in just a second. And then also looking at learner variability. If we're measuring growth in not just those students who are accessing the typical curriculum, but those kids who are on alternate curriculum, how do we make sure that everything is accessible to all learners? Getting into grad profile here, you can see that participation in Contribute and Create was very, very high. Overall, 89% of our kids hit their compete goals, and breaking it down as a school, 94% hit their literacy goal, 83% hit their numeracy goal. CARE, 100% of our kids participated in these surveys. 4K looked at cooperative play versus parallel play. Parallel play means 2 kids playing right next to each other. Cooperative play means they're actually playing together. In 5K, we measured how they're feeling each day, and nearly 75% of kids, on average, came in feeling very happy. And then in first and second grade, we measured how they felt, but then also if they weren't feeling great, did they need support from a trusted adult? And you can see the results there. Just want to see how many kids actually needed that connection with a trusted adult around the school. And then connect about friendships and adult connections. You can see there 99% of our kids participated in that. And then commit, if you remember last year was the first year that we measured this. It's using aspects of our report card, positive, persistent, prepared, and productive. Kids who are proficient across the board on both of those. And as a school, we were there at 77%. And you can see the breakdown by grade level. Other highlights from last year, we had mini golf family night in October. That was a huge success. We had a STEAM night with Horizon. We brought back our Veterans Day Assembly last year. We had PLE prom that raised money for our Be Here, Be You, Belong scholarship. And then we had our book parade again. We had Project Imagination, which was our kind of another STEAM night in the winter, field day, and spring sing. And this year we're looking forward to implementing our new writing units, everybody doing the same literacy program as each other with the new units in UFly, continuing to learn about universal design of learning, UDL, so that we can access all learners and give them all opportunities to strive and hit their goals. Other schools will probably hit on the fact that PLCs are universal across our district, and moving forward to having collaborative teams and teams of teachers working together to meet the needs of all kids. We'll be digging deeper into the grad profile instead of having everyone do everything, of really focusing on 1 or 2 by grade level and having them do more interactions with those competencies instead of just participation. And this year our theme is Together We Are. We've done Together We Are Kind, Together We Are Pirates, and that will kind of build each month, or every 2 months we'll have a different theme that will bring us together as a community.
Awesome.
Anybody have any questions?
If I could follow up on the testing fatigue.
Yeah.
You put that as you posited it as a possibility. Do you have the ability to nail that? So what if it's not testing fatigue?
That's a good question, and I don't know if you can nail it down as that. I just know that when we were testing with kids, we have to do another one after they did a series of tests at Ames Web. A lot of kids were very tired, and instead of saying we get to do this activity or we can do STAR, it was, do we have to do this right now? So the mentality was a little bit different. The demeanor was a little bit different than previous years when we did STAR.
What is the spacing between the prior and the prior test that the child is taking and the one that they are saying, do we have to do this again? Time
So
spacing.
the window that we had was April and May for all three, for running records, for Ames Web, and STAR. And for some students who scored below the 25th percentile, they also did do diagnostic testing for Ames Web. Some kids did anywhere up to 8 tests within a 1-month period. Whereas previously, when we just had running records and STAR, we could space those out between March and then April and May, so they had a number of weeks between those two.
Okay, so if you could nail it down that it is test fatigue, then you don't have to obviously correct for that, but correct the learning part. But then my question would be, do you have the ability to stop doing that? Why do you have the ability to stop fatiguing them in a way that is giving you things you can't use?
Yeah, and that's a change that we made this year. So the Ames Web window is set for us by the state. So we tried to space out our running records as much as possible, but we also want the most accurate scores, the accurate reading levels for them at the end of the year, which is why we did April and May for that. Ames Web, that's a window that was told to us of here's when it has to be by. And then for STAR, we tried to push that back as much as possible so it wasn't overlapping the Ames Web window. And this year, we have gotten rid of STAR, so we are just relying on running records and Ames Web, and we'll be able to space those out from each other. And hopefully, by the time that we get to Ames Web, it'll be enough time from the formal running records that they did that they will be re-energized to tackle those.
Okay, let me just repeat what you said to me. You've cut it back by a third?
Yeah.
The amount of testing? Okay.
So we're no longer using STAR as a measurement tool.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Bren.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Christy.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to talk about Horizon. Our school goal that we had set last year was that 75% of our students would meet math and literacy expectations in 2 out of 4 identified measures. And so we were really looking in literacy at our reading course proficiency, so having a 3 or higher on their report card, or their math course proficiency. Our reading STAR test, so the same test that Brian was mentioning. The F&P, which is that running record reading level in reading. And then the CGA, Brian also mentioned that. So looking at the different strands of math that we're looking at for students to be proficient in by the end of the year. And then in literacy, we were looking at oral reading rate, and in math, looking at the math fluency interview. So we set the goal that the percentage of students meeting would be at 75%. And then also when we're taking a look at our students with IEPs, we were hoping to have our students grow, 10% of our students grow and meet 3 out of 4 measures. When we look at our baseline data, it's difficult to compare to the data from the prior year because the prior year's goal wasn't set up the same way. We had a different administration at that time who had set the goal based only on 1 measure. So our attempt last year was to include multiple testing measures to allow us to look at students through triangulation, which is just a practice of looking at multiple sources of data. And our results showed that last year, 74% of students met those expectations. So our goal was 75%, so very close to that. And 15% of our students with IEPs met those expectations in 3 out of 4 measures. So we're pleased with our results. A couple of highlights. When we're looking separately at math and reading, we had 76% of our students that met those 2 out of 4 measures in math versus 73% of students that met in reading. A huge celebration from our Wisconsin Forward score, our 3rd grade reading scores, and that's an index score, so it's not the percentage of students proficient, but Forward sets it up as an index score where it takes like the number of students who are getting proficient, the number of students who are getting advanced, and put together a score. In 2023-24, that was an 80.4. Last year, that score was an 87.9. So that was a significant increase, and we had spent a lot of time with 3rd grade reading due to Act 20's requirements. So we were really pleased to see the results of that. Our ELA proficiency overall as a school was at 72% and math proficiency at 72.5. And we had a slight attendance rate increase of 0.3% from the prior year as well. So overall pretty consistent with good attendance results. Some opportunities for improvement. A focus on growth really for all students is something that we're taking a look at. One of the opportunities that our school report card showed us is that we have an opportunity to help all of our students grow, especially in the area of math, and our students who are really high achieving. So that's something we're working on. Special education and supporting our students' growth for our students who have IEPs. Helping our students or teachers to really be data literate, really understanding their students' data that we're receiving from a lot of these standardized tests that we're administering, and helping them to understand what that means and how we can use that in the classroom. And that continued implementation of Act 20. So we learned a lot of really great things from 3rd grade and what worked really well. And we're starting to implement all of those things now this year with 4th and 5th grade, with a new phonics program that we're utilizing, and with some of the same practices and that we're using in our Tier 1.5 and our win time as a school. When we're taking a look at our graduate profile, we had some really great results with Contribute and Create. Those were really focused around our hammock garden. We had over 99% of students participate in activities related to that hammock garden. Again, our Compete goal data there, looking at Connect. So those were a lot of mixed grade level opportunities, and over 99% of students participated in 3 or more of those opportunities. When we're looking at that report card, those prompt, prepared, positive, persistent, future ready skills, we were at 74.19% of students that met those. So that data has been relatively stable over the last couple of years, but continues to be something that is an opportunity for us to work on. And then CARE, we had 79% of our students that completed that CARE survey 3 or more times. We discovered at the end of the year that we didn't have a great system for having students who were absent from our CARE survey making that up. So that's something that we put into place for this year. So if a student misses the CARE survey when they're absent, we now have a mechanism in place to make sure that they're making it up in the following couple of times that they're in their guidance class. Some other highlights, the hammock garden being a huge highlight and a big celebration, all the work that Mrs. Jazanowski put into that, and something our students are certainly enjoying. Veterans Day Assembly, which is always a wonderful event, our shared STEAM night with PLE, the Thanksgiving placemats that we develop and deliver to area nursing homes. That's something that we'll be delivering tomorrow, actually. Our care night, where we had some speakers in to talk to us about how we can be good friends to students with disabilities. Our family board game night, March Madness and Tournament of Books, of course 5th grade going to Camp Whitcomb and their talent show, and a wonderful field day to celebrate the end of the year. And as we look ahead, our academics this year, we're really focused on that PLC implementation, along with student-centered MTSS practices. So that's really how we're looking at how our learners are variable, Some of our learners need extra support, some need enrichment. So how are we making sure that everyone is getting that 1 year's growth, which really helps address that opportunity that we had identified? And then supporting our teachers with instructional resources that will help meet the needs of all those varied students. We have a school theme this year where we're focusing on rowing together. So when we talk about this, we talk about how rowers, you really have to be in sync and all working at the same time, just like we want to be all working and really collaborating heavily together as a school. We've done some work with clarifying and emphasizing our behavioral expectations and really helping students to work on being kind friends. We have some care team focus on monthly challenges where our students are earning tickets and working to earn enough tickets to earn a monthly challenge. So for example, in the month of October, we had one of the Watt boys come on in and talk to our students about what it meant to be a good sport at a great assembly that we had. And then we're also doing some connections right now with PLE to focus already on helping those second graders transition to third grade. So Mrs. Horvat and I had the opportunity to meet with them all already and talk a little bit about why they should be excited about coming to Horizon next year.
Awesome. Any questions?
One question for you. The scores you gave for the forward exam, those are post the revision of the definitions of those scores by DPI?
So those are the scores that we received, yes, this fall.
So they're post the lowering of the standards. So my question to you would be, do you folks internally have your own way of determining whether or not you are actually making any progress versus the scores are better looking from the state because the state lowered its standards, but you could do that in a different way? Do you have such a mechanism?
Yeah, so that's where we're really utilizing those other measures that we have. So Ames Web being one of them, we're administering that 3 times a year, which allows us to look throughout the course of the school year. We're utilizing that running record where we're looking at kids' reading level and seeing how that's growing. One of the things that we're talking a lot about is that CGA in math and how our students are showing that growth towards end of year proficiency on their standards in math. So in both reading and math, we have measures that we're administering several times throughout the course of the year that allow us to track those things.
Sorry, I think we get that data. We get everything. So the web Ames Web.
Yes.
So we'd see that for 5 years running if you'd have that.
So we just started administering Ames Web last year as part of Act 20.
Okay, what do you have that's 5 years running?
We had Star, but Star we're not using any longer this year.
Summarizing what you're just telling me, you have nothing internally that's 5 years running.
We would have our running record data that would be 5 years running. So I think in reading, that would be the main piece. And I'm not certain on the CGA exactly how many years that's been utilized.
I'm not familiar with the running record as a data point.
So the running record is looking at the Fountas and Pinnell reading level for our students. So it would be the percentage of students that are demonstrating proficiency towards their reading level that we utilize as part of our curriculum.
How well does that track with all the other testing that you do?
How well does the
running record track with all the testing you do?
I think we would have to do an analysis to check that. I think that we could look a little bit further into that, though, certainly.
Where do you get the best sense of how the children can read?
Right now, I think the Ames Web is giving us the best sense of how our children can read because it's allowing us to take a look at fluency, comprehension, their accuracy, which is going to be their decoding levels, their vocabulary. So we're looking at those different strands, and right now we're using that data to help us identify kids who need additional support in the area of reading.
But that's the program you told me you don't have 5 years of data worth.
We do not have 5 years.
Okay, but you've got 5 years of data worth for the running record running record.
Right.
But you don't use that.
We do use that, yes, as well. But I would say right now, in helping us identify our kids who are struggling the most, we're finding Ames Web, the new assessment, is helping us be successful.
Then
at
why
that.
do the running record, except for the fact that it's 5 years running, which we would definitely want to have that because we don't have that. That's making everything else useless. But why do all of them if you're not getting something that is rock solid?
So I think there's two reasons we do all of them. One is for triangulation purposes, so to have multiple data points to allow us to look at a child from different lenses. The other reason is that the running record data is aligned heavily with our curriculum. So within our curriculum, students are spending a lot of their time reading independent texts, and that tests allows us to identify what level students should be reading at.
Okay, if I recap what you told me, though, you told me that you do not, in fact, triangulate the running record with the other tests.
We haven't done that across a wide scale, but for individual students, we certainly look at all their multiple data points when we're looking at whether they need additional support and what that support might look like.
Thank you.
I just want to say kudos, Christy. This is your second year at Horizon. Obviously, you are well appreciated in this district for what you're accomplishing in Horizon. I just want to second that. I just think it's great. And I really can't wait till next year to sit in this seat and hear more data on how Horizon is doing within the next year, within this school year. So
thank you.
Thank you very much.
I agree with that. Just having a student in that, in Horizon, and being able to meet with the teachers and seeing the stuff that they're doing, that you're implementing, is fantastic.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cady.
All right, good evening. All right, here to review Asa Clark's priority goals. At this point, I think Brian Sniff usually says, oh, it sounds like repetition here. So, we work hard to make sure that we're aligned. So at Asa, we too had 2 priority goals, one in math and one in reading. The goal was for 76% of students to meet expectations in 2 out of 4 identified measures. So you'll see those measures below, some of which are mirrored from what Christy had shared from Horizon. Difference would be when it comes to Wisconsin Forward, our 8th grade students take the pre-ACT. So we use that as their indicator as far as meeting that measure for both reading and for math. And then we also have growth scores that are calculated for Forward 2, trying to balance the achievement and proficiency-based goals as well as the growth goals that kids have. For our sub-goal, we had a goal of students with IEPs meeting math and literacy expectations in 2 out of 4 measures increased by 10%. This was new to us, to setting a goal related to students with IEPs, so it was a good first shot to kind of learn from, and we have some celebrations to share there. So focusing first on math, our goal was 76% of kids meeting 2 out of 4 expectations, and we're happy to report that 79% of kids met 2 out of 4 expectations. Additionally, we exceeded our sub-goal, where the goal was for students with IEPs to increase 2 out of 4 measures by 10% and an increase by 20%. In the fall, 18% of our kids with IEPs were meeting the expectations, and in the spring, it was 38%. So that was successful. We were able to celebrate a gap closure. What we mean by that is we have overall student outcomes and then students in special education, their outcomes, and the goal is to close that gap. So that way all students are improving and achieving. So students in special education, their growth goal, 63% of students met their growth goal in Forward, and 55% of students in special education met their growth goal. So we saw that gap get closer. As we shared at the beginning, the ACMS state report card for math was at 98.5%, placing us 6th in the state among all 6th through 8th grade middle schools. So that's definitely something that we are proud of and reflecting on why that might be, and looking to continue some great practices that we have in place. Opportunities for improvement. We started implementing the comprehensive growth assessment as well at the middle school last year. And we really focused on what those end of grade level proficiencies were throughout the course of the year. We think that that attributed to some of our success last year. However, we noticed that a lot of the kids grew in that assessment, but they might not have reached demonstrated proficiency at the end. So we're going to add that as a 5th measure for this year and really celebrate kids making growth, specifically in special education, where they need to make more than 1 year's growth in 1 year's time in order to close that gap. Being able to capture the hard work that our teachers and students are doing for growth for the CGA. We also need to continue to problem solve around how to accelerate learning for large gaps in foundational math knowledge. So this is where, as we enter middle school, we know that some kids still have some fact fluency gaps, or they have some fractions or decimals gaps, and we continue on with the content, but we can't lower the bar, right? So we're doing a lot of learning about how to accelerate learning for kids in both literacy and math, but that piece there is just about some of the math pieces that we're seeing and learning about this school year and trying some new strategies. When it comes to literacy, again, 76% was our goal, and we're happy to report that 83% of students met reading expectations in 2 out of 4 identified measures. Additionally, for our sub-goal, students with IEPs, at the beginning of the year, 35% of students increased to 53% of students meeting 2 out of 4 measures. So saw some good results there. I see a typo. That should be literacy in the bullet point there, not math. My apologies. Additionally, we had a gap closure for growth in forward as well. 53% of our student body met their growth score for Wisconsin Forward, and 43% in special education met their growth score. Opportunities for improvement, we really need to continue focusing on disciplinary literacy. So what does that look like? Reading across content areas. It builds that confidence and that independence for our readers when there's that multiple exposure, especially entering the secondary world, knowing what it's like to read like a scientist, read like a historian, read like a chef. So we're continuing to work on that. We also are exploring the bridge between Act 20 and the elementary schools and the science of reading and what that means for middle school, right? We know that the work that the elementaries are doing will come to the middle school, but we're not going to wait for that to happen. We need to make sure that we are bridging some of the gaps that we're seeing in reading specifically. So that's work that we're doing this year as well. We're doing a lot of learning at the middle school to analyze kind of what we're seeing and what we need to learn about and try to implement. So overall, to summarize those opportunities for improvement, focusing on that growth for all. While it's a celebration that our gap has closed for growth, we want more than 53% of our kids meeting their growth goals, right? And that's just the cold, hard truth. So we need to really think about how we differentiate learning to ensure that all kids are growing, including those who are already meeting grade level standards. We're continuing to build a community of practice, right? Which means that all teachers are all in on our goals. That happens through PLC implementation and also our learning walks. This year, all staff members at ASA will be, and across the district, are participating in learning walks where they go and observe other classroom practices. That's a great way to kind of knock down the silos that can build up in schools and learn from one another. Finally, we're really thinking about our data literacy and what role does a pre-assessment play, so that way I know where my learners are at before the unit begins and kids aren't sitting through content that they might already know or they can't access because they don't have the prerequisite skills. So we're really broadening our lens of what it means to utilize data at the middle school and then how we can use that to plan for instruction. Thinking about our other graduate profile competencies, we have a shared goal for Contribute, Create, and Connect, which is focused on service learning. Our goal is 100% of students at the middle school participate in a service learning project. Last year, 99.5% of students completed this, and that's due to absences. It's a gradual release model, and so each grade level kind of had a different focus for their service learning. Our commit goal is focused on future-ready skills. So our goal was that 70% of kids would earn MET or above in 12 out of 14 of those skill sets. 83% of kids got MET or above in 85. So we exceeded that goal as well. Our last one is our care goal, which we continue to wrestle with at the middle school. Finding the right measure and metric and way to gather that data for our adolescents is, something that we're working on. This last year, we focused on what's called the Student Behavior Index, which is a number that's contrived from the Student Engagement Survey. The goal there is to see a score decrease, and we saw a score increase. So it went the opposite direction despite our efforts. So we were kind of trying to problem solve on why that might be. A lot of it, is taking the time to read the questions and kind of setting up the stage for that, that self-reported survey. So that was some reflection there with our student services team. Other highlights from last year, we continued our extended learning days, focused on connection across our building. We had an increased focus last year at the middle school on achievement and growth for students in special education, and that really felt empowering to have all staff talking about all learners. Last year, we continued with our Compass Crew, which is a student-led group focusing on fostering kindness and inclusion across the building. Last year was year one of our Wellness Center. We had a student council speaker come for both the high school and the middle school. We had winter assemblies and pirate games in the spring and field day. So we try to sprinkle in the fun when we can. I included some Q1 Wellness Center data for you all to review because we've had some really good metrics come in that tell us the impact of our Wellness Center. As you know, the PTO granted us a large sum of money to continue to furnish the space because as a pilot, that was just curated from, thank you, Brian Siegel, some different buildings as far as things that we could piece together. And so we're seeing some really good use. And so we're continuing to think about how to promote well-being for our middle schoolers. This upcoming year focused on growth for all, continued emphasis on disciplinary literacy, monitoring the impact of the Wellness Center, and then to the care closet. So ASA houses the care closet here, and we're continuing to see just new and different needs. So shout out to Adriana Plock, who has also partnered with another partner called the Care Portal, where we can get needs like glasses or, transportation needs, things like that, because we're getting requests here in our community that exceed what our closet can hold. So really just trying to foster that community aspect through ASA.
Kudos on the gap reduction for special ed kids. That's amazing. I remember last year when we went through strategic planning, ASA really reflected on those goals, the importance of the special ed gap reduction, and there was, a real push for these inclusion classrooms. Do you think that those inclusion classrooms were part of what helped that gap to reduce? Was it the methods that teachers use? What do you kind of attribute some of that to?
Yeah, I think it's multifaceted. I think that the first is that all teachers had their personal goal focused on students with IEPs, which I think sometimes when you hear a student has a plan, that ownership can vary because who's doing what work to support that student. So it really placed the emphasis on collaboration, right? When you measure something, you pay attention to it. And so I think just continuing to make sure that we were looking at how students were progressing was an important piece. I also think with that then comes co-planning, right? So that's a special education teacher and the general education teacher, and really defining those roles. So as a content area expert, I know the curriculum, I know the standards. As a special education teacher, I'm all about access. How can I get kids to access that content in a number of different ways? So those powerhouses coming together, we're really able to bust through some barriers that held kids back from even trying to engage. Especially in middle school, kids want to save face as much as they can. So I would rather do this or do this than look like I don't know what's going on. But by getting ahead of the planning and the content, when we can expose kids to vocabulary, show them the question set, just small strategies that empower them to engage, they want to achieve, they want to do well. It's how do we get them out of that social context to, engage in their learning. So, kudos goes to our staff to really collaborating and working together to benefit all learners.
And it truly is a balancing act, because on the opposite end of that spectrum are our bell curve kids, or the advanced learners. How do you feel it's going for those groups of kids? Are they staying challenged enough?
Yeah, that's our goal for this year. So our goal for this year is really thinking about how to establish rules, procedures, expectations, so that way learning occurs without the teacher. So what structures do I need to put in place to make sure that all learners are continuing to push themselves? That frees up the teacher to be able to meet with small groups of learners for acceleration or for extension. And that way I've got, systems in place so that way kids are progressing on with activities that are at their pace and level. So that's the goal for this year, is really focusing on that growth and thinking about how my teacher time can be divided to support the growth of all. Because that's often what we see. When we see those low growth scores, that's not always the kids who are striving for proficiency. It's the kids that are meeting proficiency or above that still have goals, right? And so our emphasis needs to be on them as well, because we know that, if I'm not engaged or if I'm being compliant in my learning, that's not fostering that agency that kids need in high school and beyond.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm
Go
glad to
ahead.
hear that the Act 20 stuff is continuing into the middle school. Did you guys start that last year or you started it this year?
Yeah, yep. And that's still, I will say Ames Web, having that data has been really vital into us just even better understanding where kids are at with their reading. So we are knee deep in that right now. We had our first probe in the fall and our second one will be in February. So in between here, we're really looking at the different diagnostic testing that's within that program. And I think I mentioned this before. There's some skill gaps that our middle school, secondary trained language arts teachers might need to fill when it comes to specific reading strategies. So it's first understanding the need, seeing where there might be some gaps in PD. I will say that all secondary language arts teachers are part of a cohort during professional development days. So there's the power in having that shared learning and be able to deliver just-in-time strategies to support that. So the structures are there. This is really just like a big learning year for us to see, where we're at, what those gaps are, and then next year we'll be like, okay, here are the specific either programs or, high leverage strategies that we've learned of that we're going to deploy to help with that.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quick question. Do you have anything in terms of, either explanations or things that might have contributed to the mathematics being the sixth in the state at 98.5, if you will? And then Mike and or group, any kind of little celebrations for your staff in terms of achieving that?
Yeah, absolutely. Melissa Schultz, our instructional coach who focuses on math, has done a phenomenal job of utilizing the Building Thinking Classrooms framework with our secondary staff. There's a number of different strategies within that, one of which are called vertical spaces, and it's all based upon the brain science that when I'm standing up, right, doing things, I'm a little more animated and I'm into what I'm doing. That moves from surface level learning, where the teacher is the guide, to that deeper comprehension. So through certain roles, kids, are kind of forced to participate. It takes down the veil of looking over and cheating because everything is up. So it's okay to be able to look and see what everyone is doing and to kind of try that strategy. It also allows the teacher to have a little bit quicker just-in-time feedback, because if I'm seeing misconceptions around the room, I'll call a timeout. We huddle at one board. I'm going to model again. Now you go and try it. There's a ton of different strategies there that really hit that deep learning, which is all about conversation and kids taking risks, speaking through strategies and wrestling with something together, as opposed to either surface level instruction or I'm doing it on my own. So I would say that would be one piece. Jess Weiss has also partnered with Smart School, which is like leveraging AI as a tutor for when I'm not at school and we're in some math concepts that my parents don't really know much about, and I'm utilizing YouTube or, frantically calling someone who used to be a math teacher. So her pilot with that was great, and actually this year the whole 7th grade math department assessment is utilizing that to see what the impact is. So again, like, we support innovation, we support risk takers, and it's all about, how did this work? What was the impact on learning? How do you know that it was successful? How do you know it accelerated learning? So it's all about the metric, but if people have something that they want to try, we say go for it, and let's talk about how that went.
And I call it kind of like an instructional technique, if you will, in terms of doing it, but it's also a learning technique at the same time. So, I mean, this is one of the advantages, and if you've not participated in these walkthroughs in the classrooms, really go out there and do it, because I remember last year we were doing it, and we were in the classrooms, and you could see the kids stand up, and the teachers are working with them, and they're all working simultaneously on solving sort of the same problem, and you can kind of obviously see how they're going through that process, and it's really great because they are forced to participate and forced to be kind of like part of that learning. But I mean, the teacher's doing it, but also the kids, I think, have a different learning mindset when they're standing at the boards kind of doing that stuff. So
The last one is I would, have you write 9 thank you cards to our entire math department. But last August, I convened them at in-service and said, you guys, we need to change our focus on remedial skills with what was called the foundational skills assessment and focus on grade level standards. So that's that CGA. So I sprung that on them during in-service, which is not a kind ask, but I do think that focusing 3 times per year on what we want them to achieve at the end, continue to think about, okay, what do we need to spiral in for warm-ups? What do we need to emphasize more through our units? It kind of lend itself to thinking about those end of grade level standards throughout the course of the year, so that to ensure that nothing was missed.
Well, and it's clearly one of those things. And obviously, when I was back in school, I mean, it was a very, very different learning or a teaching environment. But I think this is a perfect example of recognizing that there's research out there that, kids standing up and working at a board, and also then the teachers being able to do it in a different way. It's new. For me, obviously, it's a new way to learn. But it's just one of those things where it's like to see the things that are working and really working to be able to achieve a ranking of being 6th in the state of Wisconsin in terms of the use of the math kind of stuff out there. So, I mean, I think, again, I would encourage you to do that walkthroughs if you can. It's the changes that have occurred. It's the innovations that have occurred in education out there. And I'm saying that to my peers and colleagues here because it was a big revelation for me to see that in action in your classroom. So.
And Larry, I would add to that, last week I was at ASA for a learning walk, and along with that vertical learning, which I saw last year as well too, I was introduced to Smart School, this neat AI tool where they can take these practice tests to see how well am I learning the material. And when you initially use it, you can have like a tutor within this AI system that helps you learn. But then the day that we were there, it was the day before the test. So no more tutor. You just went in and took this practice test to see what are the areas I still need to work on before tomorrow's test. So it's just really some of these neat tools that I just think are, why we're seeing the growth in our students.
Could I move you back?
Yes.
Could you read out, or the 2 areas where you actually did the 2 out of 4? Could you read the 4 in both cases?
Yes.
Thank you.
So the different measures?
Correct. One is for ELA, and I think the other one was for math.
So for math, our measures are proficient or above in all course proficiency scores for semester 1 and semester 2. That's because they're unit specific, and we wanted to make sure that they reach those proficiency scores across the grade level math curriculum. Proficient in all strands of the comprehensive growth assessment. That's at homegrown end of school, end of year proficiency on those priority standards. Proficient or above on the Wisconsin Forward math for grade 6 and 7, and the pre-ACT for grade 8. And they met their individual growth expectations as measured by Forward. For literacy, it's proficient or above on the identified literacy standard for each grade level, proficient or above in either social studies or science disciplinary literacy proficiency score, proficient or above in reading for 6th and 7th on Forward, pre-ACT reading for 8th, and then again, that growth expectation as measured by Forward.
Okay, so I don't have any real data here. I don't have any real, but that's okay.
If you
what I thought you were going to tell me is that they could read X, Y, Z at a given level, that math, they could do their fractions, but that's not what this is, so that's okay. Thank you for that. I would suggest to my colleagues, so we don't look as stupid as we sometimes do, this is not new. If it's new to you. It is not new to the teaching profession. Hands-on education is not new to the teaching profession. What is the other one? Phonics. Phonics was for a long time part of the education everywhere. It was pulled out. Now it's back in as if it's new. Teaching at the board is not new. Everything described here tonight is expected. It's been known for years, decades, and decades. So it's not new. So I didn't want to have our
When you
audience
say
left
teaching
with
at
the
the board,
impression
though,
that
Mary, what are you referencing? The instructor or the teacher being in the front of the classroom and working on the board? That was my model when I was in school, that was the teacher in front of the classroom. Where in this case, it's the students have boards that there's 7 or 8 or 9 of them in every room.
I've done that myself. It's not new. It's a teacher, it's what you bring to the classroom, it's what you know, it's your tools. It's been in the toolkit, the teacher's toolkit, for decades. The fact that you didn't have an exposure to that particular thing does not mean that it was not everywhere else in some way present and could be accessed. But
That's a really great thing. Thank you for sharing that, Mary. And maybe sometime you could give us an example or go to a classroom and show how it was done in your day when you had students at the board. So
do it all the time, drop of a hat, all the time. That's why I'm saying it's not new. And
well, when was the last time you did it, though, Mary?
it doesn't matter the last time. It is universal. Going to the board is useful 10 years ago, 5 years ago, yesterday, 50 years ago. So whether I did it 50 years ago
right, but it was
or yesterday, it's the same concept that is still very valuable. But I just wanted to point that out, that it's not new, so that people who are in the teaching profession outside of this room who look at this and think, what is he saying? This is not new. We all know this. This has been done for years and years and years and years. I didn't want people to think that we didn't know
I don't
that.
think you're comparing apples to apples here, Mary. You have a different perception of what the board at the board means versus how it's being practiced today. So,
Thank you so much, Cady. Really appreciate that.
hello, Emily.
Thank you for stepping in.
Hi, guys. Yes, of course. I am very excited and happy to be here and that Brian and Jane trust me to do this. So here we go. No, you're good. I'm just going to click on through all the great stuff about ASA and talk about the high school for a couple moments. So we are going to talk about our 2 compete goals. So our first compete goal is that the gap in reading growth results on the ACT between regular education students and special education students will be reduced by 10%. So again, we're going to be talking about closing the gap between and amongst all of our students. And goal number 2 really focused on the gap in composite growth results on the ACT between, again, regular education students and special education students, again, will be reduced by 10%. So we focused on reading, and then we focused on the overall score. So with our first goal, the gap in the percentage of students meeting their growth goals was reduced from 22% to 11%. So if you look at 2024, our regular education students scored at a 57%, while students with disabilities were at a 35%. When you go to 2025, which is what our results are from last year, regular education was at 58%, and students with disabilities hit 47%. So that is representing a 50% reduction, while both target groups of students increased their percentage of students meeting growth. So again, this is focusing on growth. And then goal 2 is for the gap in students meeting their composite growth goals. It was actually reversed to students with disabilities meeting their growth targets at a higher rate than regular education students. So once again, this was while both target groups increased, but actually our students with disabilities scored higher than our regular education students for meeting their growth goals. So a couple of things that we just want to mention for why this was so successful this past year is that district-wide, we implemented the new verification process for staff review of all 504's IEPs with 100% fidelity. We were able to make sure that all teachers knew exactly what their students needed in order to be successful. And I can say this year we met that 100% very quickly. I know we're talking about last year, but it was just exciting to see how quickly our staff were able to see and know exactly what everybody needed. Our learning sprints focus on consistency and follow through, and our learning sprints have to do with the ACT and what students need in that area in order to, again, increase their goals and increase their growth. We also made sure, and this was just astounding how quickly all of our staff was able to get our classroom-based data in order for us to analyze it more efficiently. So thank you to Candace for making sure that we had all of our data very quickly and we were able to do some of that item analysis. And then all throughout last year, we had the focus on UDL, Universal Design for Learning, as well as we married it with that building thinking classroom that Cady spoke about as well. For opportunities for improvement, the biggest thing is that we are continuing to try to determine how can we balance the focus on our small targeted populations versus the more broad benchmark data. So again, like we are focusing on how can we close the gap, how can we move all students forward, but while focusing also on our special education students. But we just want to make sure we're not losing the sight of all students, and I will get to how we're helping our advanced learners excel as well. We are continuing the focus on UDL and building thinking classroom strategies, where all of our math teachers are participating in building thinking classroom, as well as about half of our science teachers, whether it was from last year or this year, they are participating in that. And so you can see that in their classrooms if you ever stop by and see that. And when we walk through at any time, it's really cool to see those practices. And then we have enhanced the collaborative structures to deepen the professional learning and collective efficacy of staff. So how that may look is last year, once a month on Fridays, we made sure that staff were able to collaborate, special education teacher with a reg ed teacher. Departments were able to get together and think about that vertical learning. This year we are implementing PLCs while we're also still having that time for special education staff to get with regular education staff in order to understand what and how we can help all students grow. Looking at the graduate profile, these were all of our goals from last year. The one I'm gonna just focus on is our commit goal. This was a different measure than we have used previously. So I'm sure the 3 high school students that are here right now can say, oh, Miss Hansen showed up, and all of a sudden we start talking about future ready skills a little bit more. And that's true, that is how we went ahead and we looked at our commit score, and we had 76% of our students earning a 3.0, which would mean they were all meeting expectations or exceeding expectations in all courses for all of their future ready skills. And that's from there we implemented the dean's list and just made sure that we were celebrating the students who were showing how to be just great humans and showing that they're ready for the future. So advanced learners, yes, we talked about closing the gap with our students with disabilities, our special education students. This is our AP data for the last 5 years. And what you're gonna see here is that 2025, we had the most students in AP courses. We took the most amount of exams in the last 5 years. We had the most students with scores of 3 or higher, which means colleges were more likely to accept that credit from the AP course. And then the percentage of total AP students, so of that 301, 83% of our students who took an AP test scored a 3 or higher. So that, again, we focused a lot for our goals on students with disabilities, closing the gaps between all students. But again, we wanted to keep pushing and excelling our AP students. So this just shows how hard our AP teachers worked in making sure that whatever they were doing was applicable and exciting for their students. Couple other highlights. There's a picture up here of Caleb Cady, and when he went ahead and was the state champion at 157 pounds. So we got to make sure Caleb knows that he got a shout out. Amy Tarian was Miss Basketball for Wisconsin. Owen Doberstein was the D2 baseball player of the year. Girls soccer was made it all the way to the state game, WIA state runner-up, first time in school history. Boys track 4x800 team placed 5th at state. They went ahead and they took advantage of running at nationals as well and took a trip out to Oregon. Our boys volleyball team won conference for the first time in school history. And this is all because of how great, Mr. Behrens is. And he was recognized as the WADA State Athletic Director of the Year. Yes, I just talked a lot about sports, but thinking about activities, Anu, who is in the class of 2026, was selected and is currently serving as the Region 7 Vice President for FBLA. I've already talked about the highest AP exam participation and results in recent years. A couple things that really stand out to me is that when we looked at the state report card, our chronic absenteeism rate actually decreased by 3.1%, which means more kids were getting in the door and getting what they needed. And then with our Future Ready skills, we deployed silent mentoring and helped those students who really needed just a little bit more in order to work on some of those possibly just executive functioning skills. Those students wouldn't know who they are because, again, silent. Our teachers maybe were just checking in with them, pulling them in for a resource, doing what they could do to have that touch point. Looking ahead, this is our compete goal for the upcoming year. Our goal is 65% of students in grades 9 through 11 will meet their grade level benchmark in reading as measured by the ACT, as well as 65% of students in grades 9 and 10 with IEPs will meet their growth reading expectation as measured by the ACT. The last one with the ACT would be 80% of students in grades 9 through 11 will meet their English grade level benchmark. And then finally, 60% of 9th grade students in Math 1 will meet their math growth expectations as measured by the ACT. But really just focusing on our Math 1, which is our 9th grade students for the most part. And that's all I have for you guys.
Emily, I want to thank you personally because I know that you did a lot of work along the lines of truancy and that chronic absenteeism, and kudos that you were able to decrease that absenteeism by 3.1%. That's significant. When you think about it, if they're not here, they can't learn. We can't educate them.
And
So
I will
thank
say,
you.
it wasn't just me. Like, I can't, shout out our student services team enough, having Jane Matter at my side as well.
Yeah.
So then there were 2 APs who were tackling this, just really made a world of difference.
Yeah. Just want you to know I really appreciate it.
Could I just ask one question?
Sure, Mary.
Prior, before you, was 75%. And if I'm following along what you folks have been saying this evening, we started out in PLE where we were all talking 90s and 80s. And as we keep moving up the grade level, that keeps dropping so that the numbers you're giving me now at the end of the, at 9 through 12, your targets are 60s. Why is that?
So there's a couple different reasons for that. Reason number one is if we look at the state data, 65% is actually above average than what the state is scoring at, and that's where we want to be. Of course, is above average and excellent. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head as to where students are scoring, but I know it is not at 65% if we look across the state. And the other reason would be that our goal from last year focused more on their growth goals, so that's what each student needed, versus this year we are looking at overall benchmark.
You have data, you're targeting in these, was it ASAs right below you? You're targeting 75%. So this is totally internal, has nothing to do with the state, as you presented it. You're targeting for 75%. I'm still not clear as to why you target 15%, give or take, lower because they've gone 9 through 12.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding your question. You want to know why our goal of 60 is 65% versus why it would be 90% or 95% from PLE or Horizon?
Right. So it changes through the school. It's not that the school has as a goal, we want 95% literacy or whatever it is. It's 90, you start out in 90 at PLE. It drops as you go through the district, and I'm wondering what the thought process is behind that.
You know, I think that's a really good team question that we as administrators can sit down and talk about more. But the biggest thing that I can say from looking at the ACT is that the benchmark, again, is about the benchmark's high for the ACT. And we want all students to be above that. And our goal obviously is that all students are above that. And that's why our goals recently have always been about growth, because we want all students to hit their growth goals. But sometimes growth goals and benchmark goals don't always align, and we've made them more rigorous this year by looking at the benchmark versus just growth goals.
I can interject a little bit on this. I can interject on this question a little bit as well. I mean, the where the state scores are relevant is just the context in terms of, if you look at the elementary scores across the state, and those, they're going to be higher than they are at the upper grades. So it's the context of what generalized performance in those assessments, and the ACT is an entirely different assessment than the Wisconsin Forward. So performance is different on those, and we use a approach of SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, results oriented, and time bound. So what they do, to answer your question, is they look at past performance, they look at comparables, and they set a target that pushes for improvement, but is something that's reasonable to attain based on existing performance. So that's kind of the process, just trying to provide a little more answer to your question, Mary.
Thank you, Mike, for that. But I'm still back to the internals of the school. So ASA turns over to you a body of students who are at 75%. You don't put out a body of students that are at 75%. You are, and I can just leave it with you with this. I do not understand why you target 10 to 15% below what you took in, and ditto for what comes out of Horizon. You were given something at a higher level, if all your scores and data collection is correct, and you target at the next level something lower than that. So you plan into your goals a decrease in the number of students who are going to achieve at the levels that you want them, that they achieved prior. So it jumps out to me. I'll just leave it with you folks to do what you had said as a admin discussion, but thank you very much.
I just have one thing. Could you go back a couple of slides? That one. So if I do the math on this, so you've got the number of students, 301, but there were 537 exams taken and 250 passed. But that implies, I mean, kids are taking multiple AP courses and relatively successful on taking or passing those exams. So, and if I did my math correctly, it's like not quite 2, but 1.78 and 1.78 for the last couple of years, which looks like it's higher than it was in 21, 22, and 23. So, which is good, right?
And I also want to say this is something that I actually looked at last year with a couple of the counselors, of how many students we have enrolled and how many we're thinking about taking the test. It's really exciting to see that more students are feeling confident in taking the test versus just going ahead and putting themselves through an AP course and then possibly not taking the test at the end. This just shows that more feeling that confidence that they can do this and that they can do well on it. I mean, there's some students who take 5 or 6 AP tests, and then there's also kids who take 5 or 6 AP classes, but then they don't want to take all the tests at the end. So it's exciting to see that confidence.
Yes. And I know Bren complimented you on your work with the absenteeism rate, but I also know that you're continuing to work very, very hard on that, and hopefully that will continue to see improvement in that with your other activities that you've got going on with absenteeism and tardies and all that kind of fun stuff. So
thank you.
And thank you for filling in for Brian, by the way. But
no problem.
I mean,
good job.
It's probably the first excuse that we've had that somebody had to miss a meeting, but mountain biking accident really was.
Yeah, usually it's that he's in, out of state. That's why Jane was here last year, and this year it's because of an accident. So he was planning on really being here, I promise. So thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to all of you. Appreciate it. All right. Well, John, that leaves you. Next, we're going to look at the crisis response plan. John will review it with us. So you can step up.
right. So again, this is just more of the formality of it with the state statute. So it needs our crisis plan needs to be board approved every 3 years. We update it annually and as needed basis. We made a couple of changes this year. And then the other aspect of this is with the crisis plan, there's a lot of those items that we don't communicate to the public, and like if there was fine details or like details regarding the reunification plan or something like that, there's another statute that would ask us to go into a closed session for that. So if you have any questions, I can try and answer them, but otherwise, most of the fine details shouldn't be disclosed in a public setting.
I have a question.
Yep.
Hopefully it's okay to ask this.
Yep.
I did review the
Yep.
whole plan, and in the area of like drugs.
Yep.
I may have missed it, but I didn't see where it talked about naloxone or Narcan and administering it to a student that was in an overdose crisis, and who was authorized or trained to do that. Is that part of the
Yep.
plan? Is that
it is in there, and I
Okay.
know for a fact it's in there because I put it in there.
Okay.
There is 2 mentions of Narcan that are provided in there. We do have a number of our medical alert teams in each building trained with that. I'm trained. We also have a variety of other second shift staff that are trained on being able to administer Narcan. Also, our SROs are trained on that, and we have a variety of nurses that are trained on administering it as well. But yeah, great question. But it is in there. Yes,
Okay.
I do remember
It
seeing
was a lot of reading, so I figured
No,
it
it is a lengthy document, and again, there's a couple aspects like say the evac plans. When we have the whole new area at the high school, those will be updated and added to the plan. So it's just a matter of there's a couple of those aspects of with construction they'll be updated when we have the new building online.
So my quick search of the file, there's 25 references in terms of the word Narcan in the
and
document.
narcolepsy,
So
yeah.
Okay.
it's
Sorry.
kinda-
Yeah, no worries.
It was a lot of reading.
I know.
There is a lot of great information in there.
The search on it.
Any other questions?
And then I'll be back in December with the other requirements that we'll need to report to Office of School Safety at the end of the calendar year that we annually do. So,
I mean, it's specifically in the one that you referenced, like the drug use, drug overdose. I mean, it's in there specifically in that one too, so.
This is the crisis management presentation?
Yes.
Well, this is
Crisis
this is
response.
the approval of the crisis response plan.
We gave you 30 minutes for this, did we not?
Yeah.
Well, let's go. Totally
I
kidding.
mean, it was a great plan. I mean,
How did you put down 30 minutes for this if it can't be, did you think it should be discussed in closed session? For the 30 minutes?
I don't know why it got 30 minutes. I would say for me, the 30 minutes plus I spent at home literally reading through the plan because I felt responsible to read through it. I don't feel like I have to sit here and discuss it for 30 minutes because I read through it and it's very thorough. It's very comprehensive and
I like the diagrams.
yes, it was
Yeah.
very, very
well,
well
and
thought out.
and again, that goes back to the memo where there's a lot of history and utilizing the whole safety committee and local partners that we contract with, work with, our local municipality, fire and police. They're all integral parts of the ones that created the plan, continue to update the plan, and again to practice that plan.
So the board, you don't think the board should have a discussion on this in closed session later on?
No, Mike, I don't know if you want to weigh in, but I don't think that we need to have a closed session.
It'd be the board's decision. Mike is very familiar with the plan. I'm quite confident. But the board is not able to discuss this in the 30 minutes in the manner that someone thought it should be discussed. So I just wanted to verify that the board does not want to do that. Obviously not tonight, but just making sure that the board does not want to discuss it, because this would go in without discussion.
Bren, are you still looking for comment from me?
Yeah, I mean, if you have anything to add to that,
Yeah,
otherwise,
well, I
I mean,
would say
I always make sure that if people have questions,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, no, there's a lot of the plan that could be discussed and open. There's things that are in the response plan that, as John indicated, we don't want to create any vulnerabilities unintentionally by talking about things that are in our plans that someone might be able to take advantage of. So that's why some of that might need to be discussed in a closed. So this plan is updated annually. If you've all been on the board for a little while, you would have seen it each year. But it continues to get improved. Like the reunification plan is something we've been working heavily on this year. That would be something we'd want to probably talk about if you wanted. Again, details are provided to you in your executive content. If you want to have discussion on that, then per Mary's question, that would be a closed session on some of those details. But it's just we're here to make sure that you know that we have extensively and continue to extensively plan and prepare for crisis if a crisis were to happen on our campus. And so that's why this is an important process every year, to make sure that we're accountable to you, to know that we are continuing to plan and prepare.
That's something that's not shown on the public's access website or anything? Or are there parts of it, or?
No. And if it was requested, it would be heavily redacted.
No, I'm sorry, right, John. Does one go to the website and find a category for this where parents see whatever it is you decide can be put out, or is it not anywhere to be found?
It's not to be found for public.
It's totally
for
internal.
safety
Okay.
reasons.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
And if anyone has additional questions, please do bring them out. If it is something that, John, you feel like it couldn't be discussed, you could say, I'm sorry, but we can't discuss it at this time. But if anyone has any questions, please do go ahead and.
Well, when you work closely with the village police department, it also follows the National Incident Command process in terms of what's there. It's pretty well vetted in terms of the approach, and obviously the things that we have on our campus makes it unique to this campus, and there's certain things you don't want to have necessarily outside people know what some of the plans are in terms of the details of it, so.
Correct. Yep. It's all the NIMS and National Incident Command that we have embedded within the document. So.
I'm just going to say, again, it took me significant time to read through this whole document, and I just feel very confident that our kids are safe. They're well cared for, and if any crisis should come up, this district and administration have done an excellent job of thinking of every possible thing that is needed to keep our kids safe. So I feel very confident in this plan.
Looking for a motion? Move to approve the crisis response plan as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Moving along, personnel issues. There's no resignations, but we do have an employment. Looks like a special ed teacher.
Yeah, so this one's kind of unique. This is actually a special ed intern. So Colin's done a really good job. You have to go through a process with the state to get through DPI to be approved to have internships which would normally be student teaching positions. If a person is approved for an internship as, in essence, a student teacher, they are able to take on unsupervised responsibility. There is, I can't remember, I think it's about $4,000 of a salary that is paid, so it's very inexpensive on our end. But we get, and that's always going to be a very strong practicum teacher coming from a university that's going to go into one of these programs. So that gives us, in essence, some additional staffing that we can lean into. And we really use this in areas of hard to hire positions as we try to attract really strong practicum teachers that kind of build that bullpen, so to speak, so that we can use it as part of our recruitment process. So, so just wanted to comment on that because since it is that intern position to help augment our special ed staffing. And so I would seek your approval of Aliza in that position, and I'd be happy to take any questions that you have.
If there are no questions, I'll take a motion.
I move to approve the hire of Aliza Felser as a special education teacher intern.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Next, review of upcoming activities. So our next board meeting and only board meeting for December will be Monday, December 15th. That will be preceded by a business affairs committee meeting at 6 p.m. followed by the regular board meeting. Monday, January 12th is our only board meeting for January. There again, there's business affairs at 6 followed by the regular board meeting. In February, on the 9th, we have business affairs and the board meeting. And on the 23rd, we have a policy committee meeting followed by the regular board meeting on the 23rd. Also, I just want to point out that we do have, an elections deadline schedule. We have 2 individuals on the board this year that are up for re-election. December 26th is the deadline for incumbents to file notice if they're not going to run. That's by 5 p.m. on the 26th. And then between December 1st and January 6th, candidates would file a campaign registration statement, declaration of candidacy, and nomination papers. So I just wanted to remind individuals that are up for running for the next term that those are the deadlines out there. All right. Next is legislative advocacy. Mike, do you have anything?
I can just share that on December 15th, we do have a meeting scheduled just to do a sit down with Representative Nalen as a check-in. Bren's planning on joining us for that. So I'd be John and Anthony and myself and Bren meeting with Adam Nalen. So we look forward to that. He's always been real accessible to us, and so look forward to that conversation to kind of talk about priorities and to pick his brain a little bit as to where he might see some things going in the year ahead. Continue to work with SWSA. Again, I mentioned this in the policy committee if you were around at that part, but right now there's activity. There was kind of a flurry of bills that were put out there, which is more about positioning for the spring. A really hot, probably the hottest topic right now that I keep hearing about is efforts towards consolidation. I don't think that's something that would be focused on a district like ours. There's a lot of small rurals and feeder districts and those things that I think is really the emphasis of some of the proposed legislation on things like consolidation. So those are some of the pieces that are going on out there. I don't know, Larry, I know you've been a part of those meetings with the exec committee for SWSA, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, actually, I did circulate a couple things, but there are some bills out there, I think, that are moving to the governor's desk. There's like access to public schools for military recruiters, allowing representatives of federally chartered youth groups, changes to the amount of, and criteria for designating recipients of the academic excellence, teacher preparatory programs, parental notification of alleged sexual misconduct by a school staff member, and then another one, academic and career planning services provided to pupils. Those are things that they kind of have passed now. They're more just policy-related things that are not funding or financial related to that. I did circulate a copy of, this is the approved WASB legislative agenda items that are out there. And again, this kind of flows off of combinations of what happens at what's called the Policy and Resolutions Committee that takes things forward to the delegate assembly, which is held on that January 21st. And I will be glad to be the delegate for that, which you guys have already appointed me to do that. So that'll be part of the discussion if there's any changes or modifications. But this is kind of like everything that's referenced in the little parentheses after it refers to things that are already in the positions that are out there, the resolutions that already exist. And so this is kind of their framework for it. So they don't, I mean, I guess they follow pretty closely. There's 421 school districts across the state, and so they really kind of have to have guiding directions in terms of what they need to do and follow from a legislative standpoint, and that's what this is intended to do. Just basically building off of things that are already in the resolutions handbooks that are out there. So that's all I have in that. But
all right, thank you. Pewaukee Scholarship Fund participation. You have voluntary pledge forms at your desk. For over 15 years, the board has given funds to provide scholarships for young people here. It really is an honor to go to this honors program in May, and this May I gave out 3. And these students are incredible because it's really not just based on their grades. It's also about who they are as humans, things that they've done to volunteer in the community and really live the graduate profile. So you have the form. If you're not prepared to hand it in to Tammy tonight, they do have until Wednesday, right? That you can still hand this in. So I hope that you'll really consider giving to that good cause because it really benefits some amazing young people. Lastly, the Wisconsin Association of School Boards Annual Board Development Survey. That's the survey all of us have taken before. It is due by December 9th. I personally took it right away just to get it out of the way and get it done. I hope that everyone will go ahead and take it. Your input is valuable, just to help us know as a board what you think about how we're doing, how we're performing as a board. So please do try to get that done by December 9th. Larry, I don't know if you have anything else you want to say about
I think
that?
it's a tool that we've used out there for a long time, and it is supported by the WASB, built off of board something or other group that's out there. But Bren, you and I probably need to have a little chat, because I know the last couple times when Candace does her summary of it, it's a lot of number crunching and a lot of data that's in there. And I think I have some ideas, and again, we've talked about her presentations being a little bit more like, tell us what we could do off of it. So give us kind of like the action items maybe coming off of that.
Instead of maybe going through every single question,
Yeah,
maybe just target the areas where we think we're doing great.
Might be thinking some.
This is where we need to do some work. I think that would be really helpful. All right, with that, Tammy, any citizen comments? No citizen comments. Thank you. So with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Good night, Mike. It was
Thank
nice
you
having
for
you.
joining